The clock in the corner of the ER waiting room said 6:47 a.m. when I finally pulled off my gloves for the last time. 14 hours, a ruptured appendix, 2 cardiac arrests, a kid with a fever who kept asking for his mother, and a woman who held my hand so tight during sutures that I lost feeling in my fingers for 20 minutes. I drove to the bank before going home. Rent was due in 3 days. I wanted to make sure the automatic transfer had cleared. The teller smiled the way they always do. I asked for a balance printout. She handed me the slip, and I stood at the counter, reading it, and the numbers didn't make sense. 0. I blinked. Looked again. Scrolled through the transaction history on my phone while the lobby filled with people. The first withdrawal was 6 weeks ago. $400, then $800, then $2,000, then larger. Authorized online. Authorized by me according to the system. Except I'd been working, sleeping, working again. My sister has known my mother's maiden name since we were kids. She's known my birth date. My first pet, the street I grew up on. When the bank asks security questions, they're asking about my life, and my life has always been hers too. I drove to her apartment instead of going home. I don't remember the streets. I remember standing in her doorway, still in scrubs, holding my phone out like evidence. She looked at the screen, looked at me. Her shoulders did this small movement. Not a shrug exactly, more like settling into a position she'd already rehearsed. "You'll make it back," she said. "You work all the time anyway. What's a few more shifts?" I asked where the money went. She didn't answer. I asked if she thought I wouldn't notice. She smiled then, cold, familiar in a way that made my chest feel hollow. 28,000, I said. "That's not a few shifts. Then work nights." I left, not because I was done, because I didn't know what to do with my hands. The bank lobby was quieter when I came back. I sat in one of those chairs that's too comfortable. Like they're trying to soften bad news with upholstery. I wasn't there to file a report. I wasn't there to do anything. I just didn't know where else to go. A man sat down next to me. Suit. No tie. He asked if I was the account holder for the savings account ending in A942. I said yes. He showed me a badge small. Gold. Federal. He asked if I'd authorized the wire transfers over the last 4 weeks. I said I hadn't authorized anything. He asked if I'd come to the VP lounge to review some documentation. I followed him because following seemed easier than explaining. 2 other agents waited in the private room. One had a laptop. The other had a folder. The screen showed transactions I'd never seen, transfers to accounts I didn't recognize, structured in ways that apparently meant something to them. The senior agent read the transactions aloud. Dates, amounts, patterns. Then he looked at me. "Your account was used to facilitate movement of funds for a third party, flagged by 2 different institutions. The person making these transfers used your credentials." I said her name. Not as accusation, just as fact. My sister, she has my information. She's always had my information. The agent with the folder stopped writing. The one on the laptop looked up. The senior agent asked how long she'd had access. I said since we were teenagers. He asked if I'd given permission for these specific transfers. I said I didn't know about them until this morning. He stood, came around the table, pulled handcuffs from his belt and said my name and told me I was under arrest for federal wire fraud. I didn't move. I didn't speak. The exhaustion from the ER shift pressed down on me so heavy that standing would have taken effort I didn't have. "I didn't do this," I said. Quiet, not defensive. Just true. The agent holding the cuffs looked at me. The room went still in that way rooms do when something shifts, but no one's named it yet. "Who has access to your accounts?" He asked again. I told him. Her name. Her address. The way she smiled when I confronted her, the coldness of it. He put the cuffs away, made a phone call, spoke low, turned slightly. When he came back, his voice was different. "We're going to need you to make a formal statement. As a victim, identity theft by a family member carries the same weight as any other fraud case. Probably more given the circumstances. I sat in that room for 4 more hours. They brought coffee. Someone found me a blanket from somewhere. They printed forms and I signed them, and at some point the senior agent handed me his card and said someone would call. When I left, the sun was going down. I'd been awake for nearly 30 hours. The temporary card in my wallet had $500 on it, emergency funds from the bank's fraud department. Enough for food, enough for gas, not enough for rent. I drove home. I didn't call her. I didn't cry. I just watched the road and thought about how by morning she'd wake up to a life she hadn't planned for. Agents at her door. Questions she couldn't smile her way out of. A federal case she'd built with her own hands, using my name as the tool. The exhaustion didn't lift. But something else settled underneath it. Not relief, not victory. Just the quiet recognition that I'd spent 14 hours saving lives while someone I loved was building my ruin. And now the building was done and the ruin belonged to her.